Hello, hi. So I am here because I'm going to hit my hand. I'm going to be doing recap videos about season 5 of The Magicians. So this is super self-indulgent for me. I actually used to write for a website where I did recaps, and The Magicians was one of the shows that I was recapping on this particular website. And I'm no longer writing for that website for various reasons, but I am still very much a fan of The Magicians, and I kind of miss recapping it. So I thought, hey, I've been doing recaps on my YouTube channel. Why don't I do some recaps there about The Magicians? So I leaned out of frame to get my handy notebook. And so I took some notes. I watched the first episode, and I will just share these videos while I'm watching the season. So of course it's on Netflix right now, which means that all the episodes dropped at one time, but I wanted to recap it for my own self-indulgent purposes. So I figure if there's other people who might want to get in on this conversation, please don't hesitate to comment below and your thoughts on the series and the episodes, etc. So just to kind of recap, so we're in season 5, which means that a lot has happened. And if you watch The Magicians, you'll know that during one season, so many things can take place and change. And it doesn't hurt that there's like 13 episodes, I think 13 episodes per season. So a lot can happen in 13 episodes. So as we're starting, so we're coming back from season 4, the series season finale of season 4. And I watched that actually the other day just to recap and remember what happened. I knew kind of what had happened, but I just wanted a refresher. And just a quick overview. Season 4 ends in unspeakable tragedy and sadness, but there's also some triumph and hope. One of the main characters, so before I go forward and talk further, this recap is going to be hella spoiler. Like, there's going to be so many spoilers in here. So if you have not watched season 5 of The Magicians, then pause it here, at least watch episode 1, and then come on back. Actually, pause it here, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and then come on back to watch the rest of this. So I'll give you a minute. Not a full minute. I'll give you some seconds. So you should have paused here. If you didn't, you were watching at your own peril of potential spoilers. So fair warning. The end of season 4, the season finale of season 4, it was a sad show. So we lost a main character, like a main, really like the main character. So Quentin, or Q as he is called by quite a few people, died. His death wasn't, he wasn't like killed by some creature or killed by some type of action, because they do a bunch of stuff on this show that can definitely lead to them getting killed. He made the decision to trade his own life for the lives of everyone else by preventing the librarian from becoming a god. And so in that episode, they had harnessed the god power from the gods that were inhabiting Julia and Elliot. And they had essentially killed them or mortally wounded them, got their god power out, and was able to actually save both of them. So Julia was the episode prior. So we come to the last episode of season 4, and Julia is like in the hospital at Breakbills, and they're trying to figure out how to save her. In that, she's essentially passed out because she's been mortally wounded and her wounds won't close. And so Penny, the new Penny, decides that she should be human in order to keep her around, but also to save her life. And so that was the decision they had to make: either let her become a goddess again, where they can, I guess, essentially infuse her with like all this extra power, or make her human. They can still save her, but then she won't be all powerful. So she's pissed at Penny, but he owns that it was a very selfish thing. So while she's pissed, she's like, I get it, but I still want to be around you, but I'm pissed because I don't have magic and I can't help with what's going on. So when she comes back, she's human, but they still have to contend with the god that's inhabiting Elliot. So they got the god out of Julia, they were able to trap it. So then they have to go and find Elliot. So he is also mortally wounded. They pull out his god power, and then they're able to save him. And they take the god powers, and they're going to imprison them in the there's a place in the mirror world where they will be unable to escape. So they get there. They're all ready to toss them into the mirror world. They get one in there, and then the librarian shows up, and he's like, nope, give me that so I can become a god. I promise, I won't become bad and corrupt like the other gods. I will do good by this god power. And of course, everybody's looking at him like, bruh, nobody believes you. So of course, they don't believe him. And then him and where they are in the mirror world, you can't, if you were to cast, the casting would have some detrimental effects. So they know that it's not safe to cast. Well, him and Elliot are, him and Quentin are at a standoff because they're standing at the mirror. He breaks the mirror or shatters it so that it's not so easy to toss the god power into it, or the god life force into it. And then so Elliot's standing there, they're kind of looking at each other. He's like, come on, I will do it. And Elliot's like, you know what, I don't believe you. So he casts and then is able to reopen the mirror, tosses the god life force into it. But as they said in warning, if you cast in this world, it will cause catastrophic effects. So that's what happens. And both Quentin and the librarian are essentially disintegrated. Like, kind of, this big explosion comes and they're both caught up in it. So, and we know that Quentin is dead, like not maybe I'll come back to life dead, but actually dead, because he goes down to the underworld and he's greeted by Penny, who is the other Penny, the original Penny, OP, as we say. He's greeted by Penny, who is, that's his job in the underworld, to greet the newcomers. And they have their experience. He's able to say goodbye, and then he gets his Metro card and he's off to the underworld. So we know that he is dead and not going to somehow return, or that's what we think. Gets us back to now we're in season 5, episode 1. Everyone is sad and grieving. Before we get to episode 5, let's just go back again. In episode 13 of season 4, Margot and Elliot, they're reunited. So there's they sing, darn it, that song. It'll come back to me in a minute. So they all sing and at the funeral, and then Elliot comes up. He's back, he's injured. He's not in 100% tip-top shape, but he's definitely alive and functioning. And so Elliot and Margot make their way back to Fillory once everything is kind of, they've said their goodbyes to Quentin and they're processing their grief. But, Margot has realized that she loves Josh. So she's like, let me get back to Fillory, where one, I am High King, because I'm that chick, but also I want to get back to my minions. Like, he's a human now. Let's have our time together. Well, they get back to Fillory and find out that that 300 years have passed, and Josh and Finn were overthrown by the Dark King. So they are no longer there. So the assumption is that, whoever was around at that time has obviously died, because it's been 300 years and they don't live forever. So now they have to try to figure out what to do. So that's kind of where we end at season 4 and start season 5. So Margot and Elliot are in Fillory still, just kind of stuck, because also they realize, what, we came here and the time seems to be moving oddly. So it's only been, maybe a month or so, if that, in Earth, but in Fillory it's been 300 years. So what they don't want to do is go back through the tree portal to Earth, only to find out that now Earth is jumped ahead 300 years because who knows what they would find. So they're trying to figure out how to make that adjustment. But also they're sitting in Fillory, which is the land that they were once high kings of. So now they're like, okay, we need to figure this out. What happened to Josh and Finn? So they are sitting and they're partaking of the libations. And then so they encounter a group of merry folks that are going forward to some type of festival. And essentially they are cosplaying what they call the Unshackling. So this is when the Dark King took Fillory back from the children of men, which is who they were. And so they are going to celebrate that by attending a play where they're going to tell the story. So they're like, oh, let's go and see what happened. So Margot and Elliot are experiencing that, and they find out that Finn and Josh were beheaded. No, Finn was hung, Josh was beheaded as a part of the Unshackling. So, they're both really upset. Margot, of course, is upset because her boo thing is no longer, wasn't just not alive by virtue of time, but it was a violent, terrible death. And so she realizes, you know what, there's a time dwarf here who has these clocks, who could possibly fix it and go back in time before the Unshackling, so we can do what we can to prevent it, or at minimum get out of Dodge, so that way Josh and Finn don't die. They at least can escape to Earth. Well, they go down to visit the time dwarf, and discover he's like, actually, you can't go back in time. That would be apocalyptic. That's not gonna work. So he basically is like, nah. So they have to come back up, and they're just like, well, what do we do? And then when they come back up, they have an argument because, of course, Elliot is not, as Elliot is wont to do, he's not dealing with his feelings about the loss of Quentin. Because we know that not only were they best friends, but they had they had spent a lifetime together. I don't know if it was season 3. I'll confirm and put it in the notes, but they had literally spent a lifetime together where they were kind of stuck in this different reality, and literally went through the whole life where they grew old and died together. And then that was something that they experienced in prior seasons. So not only were him and Quentin best friends, but they were more. Obviously, there was more to their relationship than just friendship. It was next level. So he lost possibly a love of his life. They could have definitely been a great love, which is a cool thing I like about this show, because it deals with love in a much more expansive way. So it's while Elliot and Quentin weren't dating, they definitely had a very strong love for each other, and they definitely have kind of a great love. But then you have Julia and Quentin, who also were a great love, because they had grown up together and had been friends together, but were really tight. And then of course you have Margot and Elliot in their relationship that is also a great love, but that doesn't prevent Margot from falling in love with Josh and wanting to be with him as her partner. So I think I like how they deal with relationships and love and feelings on the show, because it's very expansive. So you can have a love of someone, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's someone that you're romantically involved with, which I think is awesome, because it shows that relationship dynamics can be complex, and just because you love one person doesn't mean you love the other person any less. So speaking of loving the person any less, so we've talked about what just happened with, like I said, a lot goes on any given episode. So we talked about what happened with Margot and Elliot, but now while they're doing all of that in Fillory and having this whole experience on Earth, we have Alice, Julia, and basically Alice and Julia are mourning the death of Quentin. Penny, the new Penny, he's sad because him and Quentin had gotten, to know each other over the course of season 5, but he's new. So he wasn't as connected to Quentin as if if the original Penny was still around, I'm sure it would be more people mourning. But because of that Penny, like, yes, he understands he's sad about it, but his loss isn't felt as deeply. But Alice is, uncooked. She's given up. She's in the bed. She looks like she's probably not showering. She's not functioning. Julia is at least moving around, but she's also very sad, very down, and just really trying to figure out her life. One thing I'll say about Julia that is interesting but also annoying as hell. So she overthinks everything, and she always tries to bestow some type of great meaning on things when sometimes it's really just about experiencing it and figuring it out along the way. She always likes to know, like, what am I going into? How will this be perceived, or how will this, like, what's gonna happen if I do this? She's very much an overthinker, which can be very annoying. Watch her kind of ruminate, and so that's what she's doing in this episode. She at the end of season 4, she discovered that she had magic again. And like what Quentin said when he was kind of, going through his steps with Penny to enter the underworld, it was like Julia, she finds her magic in pain, which means at the end of it, she has magic because she's in great pain because of the loss of Quentin. So now she's ruminating in episode 1, season 5, about how to use her magic. Rather than just using it, just kind of figuring it out in real time, she's trying to find some great meaning, which, is annoying. Hopefully something typically has to happen to her to give her that meaning. But yeah, I'm sure. And actually, by the time we get to the end of the episode, I have a feeling that maybe that is what's happening. But that's where she is. So she's mourning, but her and Penny are now together because, as if you've watched the last couple of seasons, when new Penny came, he actually fell for Julia. He did not fall for, wow, I just forgot the name of the witch who was with Penny, the original Penny. He didn't fall for her. He fell for Julia. So, now they're together. Oh girl, the other witch is, working with the hedge witches, trying to get them together. Their powers were stripped by the librarians. They put a mark on them. So they're trying to just deal with what that means for the hedge witches and how to help support them. And so she's starting a journey, so we'll have to see what goes with her, but not a lot happens with her. We just kind of see that she is basically running the hedge witches. She's head of the hedge witches now, and a lot of the hedge witches don't have their powers because their powers have been stripped. So we'll see what happens with her, but she of course has lost Penny because now this Penny is with Julia and her Penny is dead. So I'm sure that's gonna come up in some way. We'll just have to see how. But while Julia is figuring her thing out, Penny is brought in as an instructor of break bills because he needs to teach the traveler students how to travel so they don't, die. Because travelers, if they don't know how to control their powers, they can travel into precarious situations. Like during the show, he mentions you can dream about a volcano and wake up in a volcano, and that could be bad because fire and molten lava and rock, and that could be a death sentence. So he is brought in by Dean Fogg to teach them. So of course he really doesn't want to, but Dean Fogg basically gets him to sign a contract where he can't quit, and so he has to teach them. So in him teaching them how to travel, he realizes one of the students has some type of signal that's coming to her, and so when he exposes himself to it, it causes his powers to go all wonky. So something's happening there. I'm not sure what's going to come back, so we'll keep an eye on it. And then one of the piggies, I think it's the piggy who bestows the quest, shows up looking for Quentin, doesn't know Quentin has died, comes across Julia. She's like, Quentin has died. Is there a quest? And he's like, you're a woman, because the folks in Fillory are hella sexist. So he's like, you're a woman. We don't want to, it's almost like what is it, like 18th century, 19th century, like early times back when it was like women stayed in the home and you didn't do things because you were literally the weaker sex, the fairer sex, so you did not have the capabilities to do things like quests. So he shows up and it's like, I don't think you can do it. I'll find a hero, a guy, to handle this quest. So he doesn't tell her what it is. So he goes. So she's kind of pissed, and realizes, you know what? I will do it myself. And it's like, right, ma'am, you are powerful. What is happening? So we get to the end and her and Penny are having this conversation and Penny's kind of gassing her up like, yeah, right, like that's stupid, that's dumb, which he actually believes it. He's not just saying that to BS her. Like he believes that thinking is antiquated. And so where we end in this particular episode is, all hell is broken loose in Fillory. Things are not where they were before. There are also magic surges, which I definitely think is going to come back around in some way. Just not sure how. So what happens at a magic surge? Basically, magic kind of comes in and full force, and that can be deadly, dangerous. It's hard to manage. It's just a lot. So they're dealing with magic surges. So there's almost too much magic in the world, and we're just kind of at this place. I'm looking at my notes where we don't really know what's going to happen in the season, but we have a few things that have all gone awry in the time since Quentin died, and they were able to kind of take care of the issue of the gods. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with Elliot. I really, really hope that something happens where he can confront his feelings about Quentin dying, but also his feelings about being taken over by a god who basically inhabited his body. Not basically, who actually inhabited his body for several months and murdered people and kind of lived this very, above it all existence because he was a god, so he was able to move around in a way that most people can't, and he did not always respect and appreciate the lives of human. He saw them as less than him. So that I can't imagine that doesn't do something to him. As Margot says when she's yelling at him, like, you need to deal with this. Why are you acting like everything is fine? So we have that. Hopefully he will deal with that sooner rather than later. I don't want to see Elliot further sideline in season 5 because he's actually a really dope magician and really smart and really strategic and can really do really good stuff. But I don't want him to be sidelined by these feelings and this grief and this experience, because he was sidelined for a minute and that was kind of annoying. Just seeing him be out of the game and be a god. The god part was cool, but him being out of the game was not. So I really hope that happens. When we end, Margot has been thrown in a prison cell where she is there with what looks like the ghost of Josh. Something tells me that may not be his ghost. Something tells me that may not be his ghost, and it may be something else. So maybe some more happened than what we think. Because, 300 years later, stories can be changed and tweaked and shifted so that what really happened may not be that they cut off his head. It could be something else. And I have a feeling that something else happened. I have no idea what the else is, but I don't think that her being in that cell and she thinks she's there with the ghost of Josh, I have a feeling it might be more to it than that. Especially with the way that the time shifted suddenly, the way that it did. We also end with Alice. So Alice has created, I think they're called golems in this show. I have to double check. But she's essentially created a clay figure that I think she's about to imbue with the life, history, and personal experience of Quentin. I can't imagine this going to go well. Just anytime anyone makes a golem in anything that I've ever watched across the board, it never goes well. The golem never does what you think it's going to do, and it never gives you what you want it to give you. So I don't think it's going to go so well. But she's using her great power and knowledge to bring back Quentin, which I can understand because right before he died, they had basically agreed that they would be back together. And, they spent a lot of cat and mouse time being apart, but they were very good as a pair. So I get why she's doing it. I just don't think it's going to work out. So we'll have to see. We have a lot happening in this first episode, as typical of the Magicians. So I really am interested to see how it plays out. So I will be back to recap other episodes. But in the meantime, if this kind of content, if you like hearing me talk about this, but also if you want to get in on the conversation, subscribe. And then you can turn on your notifications so that way you see when I upload a new video, and then you can come in here on these comments and we can have a conversation about the Magicians. Also, I have other content. So if you got here by this video, welcome. Great to have you. Poke around on the page and look at some of the other content that I have, where I've done other recaps, I've done movie reviews, I've also had other topics. So some cool stuff there. Get acclimated. Go ahead and subscribe so that way you can spend some time, you can come back. But also I want you to know when I'm uploading a video so that way we can chat about the Magicians and any of the other stuff that you find when you view my channel. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to me talk about this show. It's very self-indulgent. It's one of the shows that I really enjoy. So I'm excited to chat with you in the comments. Please leave your thoughts below if you have any. And yeah, stay tuned. I will be back with another episode of The Magicians. Bye.